she wasn't reporting any acute safety concerns in these messages at this point.
It's just physical side effects.
Physical side effects, yes.
So the messages continued on December 12th, correct?
Correct.
So at 2:44, Lindsay messages you saying, "Thank you, Rebecca. It does seem to be orthostatic, and I'm glad to hear that it's benign and known side effect." And then she tells you a little bit more about the prior nights, right? So she says, "So the last 3 nights I've taken 2.5 milligrams of Valium and 200 of Seroquel. I have to say that I do like the way it makes me sleep very deeply and soundly for around 7 to 8 hours, but I don't like the way I feel in the morning and most of the day. Incredibly depressed and unmotivated to do anything at all. What would you recommend for tonight?" Is that the next message after you explain to her the side effects?
Yes.
Okay. So for 10 p.m., you respond to her, don't you?
Yes.
And what did you recommend to address those concerns about incredibly depressed and unmotivated?
So at this juncture, I recommended at least continuing the 200 of Seroquel because at least now she's sleeping. So I felt like although I had recommended getting up to 400, we had gotten sufficient activation symptoms down. She was sleeping. And the 2.5 of Valium. I think I advise that we need to give time for Seroquel to work for your mood. Let's continue to accumulate good nights of sleep, as this can only be a good thing in terms of recovering and feeling better moving forward. I would say take them tonight, and we will discuss further at our visit tomorrow.
And you had a visit scheduled for December 13th, correct?
Correct.
The message continues on that day where at 7:17 p.m. where she says, "Okay, thank you. I need to make our visit virtual tomorrow. I will not be able to make it to the office. Can you please change it to that?" Is that right?
Yes.
So after having met in person with her on December 6th, having had subsequent communication with her all through the date of December 7th and kind of, again, changing a little bit about the medication plan and having further communication with her on December 9th and now December 12th, the plan was for her to again come in person on the 13th, correct?
That was my recommendation, yes.
Why did you recommend in person at that point?
This was somebody who was communicating with me every day, and I did feel that she had significant symptoms of depression, some mixed symptoms with mania, anxiety. I felt that her symptoms were severe and significant enough that I wanted to touch base with her weekly, and I wanted to see her in person. But again, I was okay with her doing it.
It's clear nurse practitioner Rebecca Gelada was very involved with the treatment of Lindsay Clancy. We can hear that in the repeated emails, the repeated calls and conversations. Let's bring into our discussion, we have with us law enforcement and litigation expert Sunny Slaughter. Sunny, good to have you on. Let's talk about what you think about this witness. She put in her notes that she strongly recommended hospitalization. That could be important for these jurors.
Thank you for having me, Julia. Yes, I think this nurse was very detailed and very descriptive in her assessment and what she was dealing with the patient, how she communicated. I think her notes and how thorough she seemed to be is really important for the jurors, because at this point, the jurors that are serving, the expert jurors that will be the fact finders in this case, are getting a lot of information that they are going to have to sift through to really get a clear understanding. We already know that Lindsay committed the murders. That is not the fact finding, but the fact finding really focuses on where her commitment will be and the level of anxiety and whether she is culpable for these murders in the fact that she knew exactly what she was doing. So they're going to have to decipher between depression and psychosis, which are two very different things, and how that psychosis has played out. This is one of the most volatile cases that I have ever seen or been a part of on court TV, not just in the realm of what is playing out in front of the jury. Are the fact finders, but the external juries, the 13th jurors, our courties, and everyone watching this case across the nation. It is really critical.
A lot of people are definitely paying attention to that. You mentioned the killing. She does admit to the killings. The jury's going to have to decide whether this was murder or whether this is something where she is not criminally responsible. Has your opinion of this case changed at all in watching it? Because you mentioned the courties watching along. I've noticed a lot of messages of people who say they felt differently about this case when they went into it, and now that they have seen more testimony and looked at the evidence, their opinion has changed. What have you been thinking when you're watching everything play out?
The same. First of all, you can't get past the horror of the murder of 3 small children. And then I also put out asking people in our courties and others, do you understand, have you ever experienced postpartum depression or psychosis? So I've been getting that information back. I've been reading the threads from our courties and others. And the evidence is quite revealing that there was such a break in the system between what she was experiencing and how medical professionals were dealing with her. We can say that she didn't tell everything, and that's true, because we can ask ourselves that when we're going to the doctors. Do we tell them exactly everything? And some people have indicated, well, she was a nurse and she should know better. But how many people go to work every single day in some form of mental health crisis, and they are still operating and navigating as usual? I think this case really is a lesson for all of us to consider around postpartum depression, and mental health awareness, how we show up for our families, how we show up for ourselves, and the questions that we ask. My opinion has definitely changed. Not that she is not guilty, but did she have a psychotic break at some point in time that allowed her to do this without her full awareness of it? That is potentially still there for me on the table. We're still just in the beginning of this case because we haven't heard from the defense. But it is a case that is definitely has a lot of lessons for the entire world to pay closely attention to.
Certainly some important issues that this case has put a spotlight on. You are right about that. Sunny, stand by. Let's get to our break so we can get back in for more of this testimony from the nurse practitioner on the stand who's walking this jury through the day in, day out, week in, week out interaction that she had with Lindsay Clancy leading up to the tragedy.